Thank you so much for coming back to another video. My name's Melissa. If you're new here, welcome. I would love to have you. And if you want to see more planty content from me, you can head on over to my Instagram. It's at Plants by Melissa. I post daily over there. Yeah, if you like what you see here, head over there and give me a follow. All right, so today we're going to be making a chunky potting mix. I use this mix to pot up my Monstera plants, like my Monstera delicosa and elbows. I just like them to have a really chunky mix. They love for their roots to be able to breathe. They don't want to sit in dense soil that doesn't have any type of amendments in it. So I'm going to be adding a bunch of stuff into this mix to make it super chunky and airy, just what they love. And I will show you what I use, how I make my mix up. Okay, so first thing, I just have an empty bin here that I'm going to be dumping the mix into, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like as we add each thing in. I kind of guess a lot and I just play around with it and see kind of what I like as we like mix it together in here. So I will show you, kind of walk you through each item that I use. So the first thing that you're gonna need is you're gonna need some kind of chunky bark, whether it's orchid bark or you can get the coco coir chips, and you know, you just want something that's going to provide a lot of aeration in the soil. So if you can find orchid bark would work perfectly. This is a mix that I got off Amazon. I love how chunky it is. It has all kinds of good stuff, it looks like, in there to provide aeration. So this is going to be majority of my mix here, and we're going to add, you know, a good portion of that into there. And the next thing that I like to add is either pumice or perlite. This is pumice here. This actually won't break up and float to the top of the soil over time. This will actually kind of stay mixed in. I recently got hooked on pumice and I really like it, and perlite is great too. I love perlite. A lot of my mixes have perlite as well. So just whatever you have on hand. You know, the main thing is you are just providing, you know, extra aeration in that soil, and you want it to be super airy and chunky. So I've been loving pumice lately. And the next thing that you're going to need is some worm castings. I'm actually out. This is all the worm castings I have left. So I need to order a new thing of worm castings. Any worm castings is fine. It's just like a light fertilizer that you want to add into there to get some extra nutrients into the plant. I'm going to be using just a little bit of, this is just organic potting soil. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of that in there just to give it some extra nutrients. Not a whole lot, but you know, just to kind of replace instead of the worm castings. I'm going to use this, you know, what I have left, and then I'll throw a little extra potting soil in there as well. And the last thing I put in is horticultural charcoal in my mixes. I use this in all my potting mixes. It's really good at absorbing excess water and getting rid of like bad things in the soil. So I love using charcoal for my mixes. I use this in everything. There's a lot of different ratios and mixing components and stuff out there, but I just kind of eyeball everything. Don't think you have to follow everything exactly. You know, if your mixes are a little off, it's totally fine. You know, use what you have on hand, and you know, you just want it to be very super chunky and airy so the roots can breathe, because the last thing you want to do is have root rot for these plants. So yes, very chunky and airy. I like to start with my orchid bark, or you know, the coco coir, whatever you have. I like to start with that first. So I'm going to be adding a good bit of this into the mix. Okay. I'm only going to make enough for, like, I have 2 plants that I need to pot up, and I'm going to do that in a separate video. And I may need to add more depending on what it looks like when we're all through here. You know, if I don't think I have enough for 2 plants, then I'll add more to it. So that's the first layer. I have a little extra pumice in this bag I'm going to use first. Probably, I would go with like 50% orchid bark if that's all you have. You want like a pretty good amount to be just orchid bark. Next is the charcoal. And then I would say like 10% worm castings. That's only 90%. So you got 10% to wiggle around with and figure out what else you want to add to it. I used to fertilize my plants with worm castings, so that's why it's in this jar. But now I don't fertilize with worm castings. I just use it in the soil mixes. And I'm just going to add a little layer of soil. And this is just organic potting soil that I got off Amazon, so let's try to make this to be pretty. All right, so this is what it's looking like. I'm going to tilt this so that you can see. All right, so once we have everything all in here, we are just going to mix it up and see what it looks like, and then add to it if we need to add anything else to it. All right, since I have 2 plants to do, I'm worried that this isn't quite enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more orchid bark mix. Just a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit more of this potting mix because it's very, very chunky. Again, I just eyeball everything. I'm just going to dump the rest of this in here. So I'd say maybe like 20% of your potting mix base if that's what you're going to use. Sometimes I do this mix without any soil at all. It just depends on what I have on hand. Yeah, so this looks actually pretty good to me. It's very airy, very chunky. So this is what we're wanting right here. Very super chunky and airy. So when you go to water your plant in this mix, the water will drain straight through. You're not going to have any kind of stagnant water in the pot, and your roots are going to be able to breathe. Because if you think about Monstera, they grow like on the rainforest floor and up trees, so their roots aren't buried. You know, they're mixed in with all that debris and stuff on the rainforest floor. So you want to kind of try and mimic that environment as much as you can. I always like to get in with my hands. I just like mixing and feeling the dirt with my hands. So yeah, I'll give you one last look here. So I think this looks good. Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to pop these up in a separate video, so if you want to watch that, it'll probably be on my channel soon. And yeah, if you have any questions about like making a mix like this or anything, just let me know below. The most important thing to take away is just you want it to be super, super chunky and airy, because Monstera love this mix. And mine do really well in this mix, and they're super happy. So I hope you come back to more planty content soon. I would love to have you if you subscribe. I would greatly appreciate the support, so thank you so much, and I will chat with you guys later. All right, so today we're going to be making my chunky potting mix that I use for my Monstera plants, like my Monstera delicosa and my elbows, and oh my god, these cats, stop you guys! Crazy freaking cats. How I make my mix up.